All right, so I'll just start off by saying I am so glad that you're at Luna.
Me too.
And anytime that you need help, really and truly, please come and find me, because I'll do the best that I can to support you.
Thank you.
But one thing I was going to say is, because you have access to your email, right? Do you have access to Google and everything?
I should, yes.
Okay, so a lot of information you're going to find is in this Luna Teachers. There'll be more specific stuff for your pod, like in our lower elementary drive, but some of this beginning of the year stuff, where was it? I don't know where it is. It's supposed to be the PBIS. The reason I'm saying this is because you're going to hear a lot about the Luna Way, and I know that they'll go more in depth about all of this whenever we are, like officially back at work. But basically what that means is the 3 R's, which is be respectful, be responsible, and be ready. And there's also lesson plans in here. Now, I mean, you can tweak it to meet the needs of your group, but basically it's a lesson plan of how do we walk in the hallway? How do we behave in the cafeteria? How do we behave when we're transitioning from specials to our classroom? But you're going to hear this a lot. And another thing about our campus is, like, really and truly, like, we really are a team. So if you see a kid in the hall that is not following the 3 R's, definitely address that and don't be afraid to redirect them, because we all help each other. And pretty much I just thought, let's just kind of get started with the day. So for arrival, you'll have to pick your kids up by 7:55, and our kids are in the gym, and they're supposed to bring a book to read in the morning. They like to bring Pokemon cards, and they are not allowed to have that. They're not allowed to have toys. So bring a book, and I think they have books in there for them if they forget to bring one. But the expectation is to be quiet. Now, we don't have to be in the gym in the morning. The special teachers do that. But they want you to pick them up on time. So just be aware of that. And Wilkerson will push out a schedule for breakfast duty. And you'll have breakfast duty for 1 week in the fall and breakfast duty 1 week in the spring. So just make sure on your calendar that you mark that down, because if you're not there, she will be calling you. And when you have breakfast duty, you need to be in the cafeteria by 7:30. And are you familiar with, like, the layout of the cafeteria? Did you get to see it?
Yes, sort of. Yeah.
So
Enough.
It's just kind of divided in half. The section that's closest to the stage is where the breakfast eaters eat. The little tables is for primary. The bigger ones, of course, is for everybody that's older. Upper L also sits in there in the morning. Now, that's not your responsibility to watch them. Mrs. Scott is in there, but it is Upper L. So if you see something, again, just address it. That's also where our the preschoolers, like the special education preschoolers, which all of their aides are in there in the morning too. So lots of hands on deck. Mrs. Broadnex, who's the librarian, she will come relieve you from duty so that you can go pick up your kids. And she's really good about being there at 7:55. But really and truly, I feel like that's everything in terms of arrival. Oh, another thing I was going to say is all of us that are in lower L, we park in that front parking lot. But sometimes in the morning, because that's also where everybody's dropping their kids off, depending on what time you get there, the traffic can be pretty bad, so just be aware of that. You don't have to park there. You can park in the back, but like I said, because our classrooms are right there and we go in through that door, so that's where we all like to park. They used to unlock that gate in the morning for us so that we could just slip in through the side door, but because of safety, they don't do that anymore, so you'll just go through the front. Do you have any questions about arrival or...
So what's the expectation, like, for contract time? When should I be on campus each morning?
We say probably about 7:45-ish, because I know you and I were talking, and you're kind of like me in the sense that you want to get there and get things set up. Just personally for me, because I like to beat the traffic, but I also like to have that time in the morning to just get prepared and get, have that little moment of silence before they arrive. So I try to get to work by 7:30-ish, but you don't have to get there that early. It's just kind of a personal preference. But definitely be there before 7:55 to get your kids on time. So that's pretty much arrival. Dismissal, we will all go to the gym, and they'll sit where they did for arrival. It's still the same expectation. They need to be quiet. They need to have a book. It does get a little loud in there sometimes, but we need them to be quiet because we have walkie-talkies. Now, since Rachel's moved up to AP, I'm not exactly sure who's going to take over her role for dismissal. I used to do it, and so did another teacher named Vignair. But basically, some of the parents, they walk up and they have to have a sign. And we provide those signs for them at the beginning of the year, which, I mean, if they lose one, you can always make them another one. But they have to have the sign, and if not, they have to go to the front with their ID, and they talk to Lydia, and she handles it from there. But some parents walk up, and then in the driving line, normally Tanner, and Tanner's in your pod, Poteet, she's like at the very corner, and she'll walk you first. And once you walkie, the kids go outside, and there's like little lanes. So then a teacher will tell the kid, okay, James, go to line 2 or lane 2, and then so on and so forth. But if you take on one of those roles, if you're ever gone, you just need to make sure somebody covers your duty. It's super hot, of course, in the summer, and then be prepared for rain too sometimes. That was one thing when I moved down here. I did not know that I knew it rained down here more than the Texas Panhandle, but I really need to invest in an umbrella and some rain boots because it never fails. It always starts to rain at dismissal.
Right at dismissal. Yep. We got hail last year during dismissal.
What'd y'all do for that?
You're like, cover. Because you can. I had my hands over the students' heads. I was like,
oh my God, that's horrible. And of course, like you said, at dismissal. So that's pretty straightforward. Yeah. You'll have your walkie, just listen, make sure all of the kids are facing forward. We're farthest away from the door, but traditional's in there with us as well. And in that main entrance, do you know where Thumper is, the bunny? That's where Upper L is.
Okay.
And so they're not with us at dismissal. They're close, but not exactly in not the cafeteria, the gym. So that's pretty much it for dismissal.
How do you do if there's if you have got siblings, like one in primary perhaps, and one in lower L, or one in upper L, one in lower L?
Normally Tanner will call the oldest sibling, and then they go get the younger ones. But you also know too, and that's another thing. I'm glad that you brought siblings up, because also some of your kids will ride the bus. And so that'll be a discussion between you and the teachers in your pod. So for instance, you'll have 4 teachers too, but we have 4 teachers, and 2 of us take the bus kids, and you need to make sure that they go to their exact table, because sometimes they like to be a little chatty and not go where they're supposed to. So you got to make sure that they're signed in. And then the other teachers take the kids directly to the gym. But once you drop your kids off, everybody's in the gym, all hands on deck. But the bus riders, they'll let us know about that at the beginning of this school year, and they'll also give us tags. And if not, you can make cutesy ones on Teacher Pay Teacher, but it's just important that they have that on there, especially like our first graders, because they get nervous sometimes and they don't know where they go, and then a teacher in there will ask them, and it's just easier if they have that little tag on their backpack
to show.
So that's dismissal, and I know I'm throwing a lot at you, so if you're like, Julian, too much, or have questions, let me know. So for lunch, I know your pod does it just a little bit different than ours. I think so. So you'll have to talk to Jennifer and Tanner about that. But what we do is you kind of have a pair for the 9 weeks. So let's say like Taylor and I, we're paired up for the first 9 weeks, and Michelle and Clarissa are paired up for the first 9 weeks. So we switch off week to week. Like Taylor and I will have lunch duty, and then the next week we'll have recess duty. And that's pretty much it. We went to lunch at 11:50, and then y'all came in right after us, which was probably about 12:20, 12:30, somewhere in there. So just kind of gauge your morning that way. The mornings are longer, but the afternoons go really, really fast. And I think y'all's specials, if I remember correctly, were before y'all went to lunch, I think.
Okay.
And another thing, too, because I remember I was telling you this about the restrooms. Now, every teacher has a different system put in place. Because we had some issues with the restroom last year, just make sure they don't take any pencils or any school supplies in there. I don't know why they like to take that in the bathroom. I guess because they're just being a little naughty child. But there was a problem. They were writing on everything in there, and it was not appropriate. So a lot of teachers like to take group bathroom breaks. I don't know. I did it both ways throughout the year. I kind of had like a sign in and out sheet for them, but then towards the end of the year when we couldn't figure out who was, writing all that on the bathroom stalls, that's when we had to all start doing bathroom breaks. So that's kind of that. But, I mean, does that all seem...
Yes, that makes sense.
Okay. Aside from that, and at the beginning of the year, so that's just kind of like the big things that everybody does. But in lower elementary, there are some non-negotiables, and I know that Rachel will give a list of this. It can go more in depth. And we talked about it a little bit earlier, but one of the things you'll have to do is words their way. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, that's what we used in my last school.
Perfect. Then you know exactly what that is. Words their way is a non-negotiable. And we'll have to share books. Unfortunately, we don't all have our own set, but we're all really good about sharing. And your pod is very organized. Rachel and Anna, they organize y'all's back closet. Our pod is not quite there yet. That's our goal for this upcoming year, is to get all of our materials organized and labeled. But they're really easy to find. And like I said, Jennifer and Tanner, they would be great about showing you stuff. They will not mind at all. Jennifer's a lot more soft-spoken. Tanner's kind of a louder personality like I am, but you'll love them both. Okay, so words their way is a non-negotiable. Guided reading, which I needed a little bit of clarification with this last year, because I thought the expectation was to do like formal guided reading with everybody, but that's not necessarily the case.
Okay.
You definitely want to be checking in. Of course, your struggling readers, you're pulling them a lot more frequently and assessing as needed. But your older ones, I kind of just did like, let's choose a book and we all read it. And during silent reading, I want you to read the first chapter. And then tomorrow we'll talk about it during the work cycle. But your bigs, I feel like, don't need as much of that small, because they know how to read. It's more comprehension. So guided reading is another one. Of course, all the Montessori, and then writing. But like I said, talk to your pod about that, because y'all structure that just a little bit differently. And Wilkerson likes us to use empowering writers. We're supposed to go to training, because Taylor and I, we still haven't had like the formal training of empowering writers. So I think that's on schedule for this year. Have you used that before?
I have not. No.
Okay. So hopefully we can get some training on that. They're aware of it. I think it's just because we're so busy in the summer, and then it gets crazy at the beginning of the school year. I will give you a heads up. At the beginning of the school year is like heavy testing. There'll be a lot of testing. So that's when we're doing our MAP test, and there's a schedule for that. I will say, Mrs. Berry, she was our interventionist, and she was the one that got all of that set up. And we would all go to the computer lab for MAP testing, and you had your set day and your time that you would go. And that's not timed, so I always tell the kids, because I have some that take a lot longer than others to test, like, don't feel rushed. If we need to come back later, it's not a big deal, because she can restart their test. First and second grade, just first. They only do math and reading, but then second and third grade, they will do science. One thing I will warn you about is it is called like a reading test in first grade, but really and truly it's a listening comprehension. And what parents will often see is in second grade, sometimes that score drops significantly, but it's because they had to read it by themselves. And it truly shows whether or not they know how to read. So I just say that because I had some parents this year that were really upset when they got their kid's score, and I think they thought the data was skewed, and I had to explain to them, nope, in first grade, really and truly, it's a listening comprehension test. Second grade, that component is taken away. They got to read it themselves. So you'll also have to do M-class testing, and that's individual. You'll do that. However, we do have a reading specialist that comes to our campus. So if you feel like at the beginning of the year you cannot get all that done, she will help you. Don't feel like you need to neglect your lessons to do the testing. And a lot of times when I pull kids to test was during like our technology or silent reading. And then it's pretty much, there's more testing for the littles. The bigs, depending on how well they read that passage and they have 1 minute for it, determines if it opens up the other tests for them. And we do that kind of like with MAP, beginning, middle, and end of the year. With your struggling readers, they do want you to do more progress monitoring. I only did that with my really low ones. And I kind of did that especially with the ones that I was providing intervention to show, you know, is this intervention working? Are we showing growth? Because then there's that conversation, well, I provided this intervention, we're still not progressing, maybe we should look at some further testing. But she will come and she'll do testing, because I will say there's one test for M-class, and all of us are not fans. It's called a nonsense word, and so I wish I had it pulled up, but you can't unless you have a kid. But let's say it's neb. So either they say it all the way and you swipe your finger left to right, or you do like each phoneme, and then it shows you how to, if they self-correct, if there's an error. But we'll have like more in-depth training with that at the beginning of the school year. But yeah, MAP test at the beginning, M-class. Like I've told you, Anna was really, really good about like assessing her kids and keeping all of that data organized. So I'm sure that information is in your classroom, but you're more than welcome. We have Fountas and Pinnell kits, and you can check that out from Broadnex in the library and use that to like
assess.
Give yourself or give them a running record and then go from there. I only pulled that out, like I said, with my more struggling ones. And then when we get close to conferences, sometimes that's when I will do an updated running record just to bring that data to our conferences. I feel like that's a big part of the beginning of the year. What are your thoughts so far?
That makes a lot of sense. So at least based on, like, from my past experience, the expectation was, like, for example, for struggling readers, you would have a DRA for every student that was a struggling reader. That's the same kind of, well, not DRA, but the Fountas.
Yes.
Fountas. So, what about MTSS or TI? What does that look like?
So did you previously teach at a title campus? Did y'all have an RTI block?
Yes.
Okay, so since we're not title, and I mean our data doesn't reflect that we need that, we don't have RTI. Oh. But I know exactly what you're talking about, because before I taught at Luna, we had RTI. But when I was at Tradewin, for our RTI, we used a program called LLI, which is also created by Fountas and Pinnell. And I used that with my struggling readers. And because what I like about Fountas, or the LLI that's created by Fountas and Pinnell, is that it'll kind of go back and forth on books. So it'll give them harder, easy. So like DC, DC, DC. And then it just gradually moves them up. And those kits are at the back of our library, and you can get books out of that anytime. And there's also other guided reading books at the back of the library. I mean, you pretty much just take and choose what you need for your classroom and just return it. We also have guided reading books in our classrooms, though.
The HMH or?
I think so. Yep.
Okay. And the expectation is that if we're doing guided reading, it needs to be with those books, or?
No, you can use whatever, because like I said, I used LLI, and Wilkerson was fine with that, because I told her, I said, I used this at my previous campus. I'm really like familiar with the books, and I feel like that's the key to successful guided reading, is like when you really know those books, you know what I mean, and you can do a good book intro or introduce those complex spelling patterns before you get into reading. But Yeah, it's totally up to you. And for the most part, I will be honest, like most of our kids come in strong readers, but you will have a few. The ones that I notice that have gaps in their learning are the ones that come into Montessori in like second or third grade. And those are the ones you really have to watch, especially those third graders. Last year, oh, bless these two girls' hearts, it just was, because it's so different from traditional, it was just very hard for them to be successful in our environment because they couldn't really follow their work plan, and then they didn't always know how to, go from work to work or where to put their work. So that's just something to keep in the back of your mind too. And another good thing that Wilkerson does, she doesn't really overload our classes. I mean, most of us had about 18 to 19
Oh
kids.
my gosh. Sorry, that's so
you're
lovely.
not, so you're not filled to the brim.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
And be prepared. Like we were already talking, the kids that come in, their parents don't always know what Montessori is. They just know that we're a magnet program and they like the magnet status.
Yeah, they want their child a magnet. Yep.
But we do a really big presentation, I think closer to the end of August, beginning of September, and we invite the parents to come, and we just go really in depth about our program. And another thing too is we don't give grades. We use Montessori Compass.
Okay.
Yeah, and we operate by 9 weeks, not 6 weeks. I don't know. Was your previous day 6 weeks?
We did 6 subjects, 9 weeks.
Oh, y'all did?
And
okay.
like at least one grade per week per subject for 6 subjects, which that's a lot of grades for second graders. So this is
you're not having
so
to do that, but and this is one thing that our pod talked about that going forward we want to do differently. And that's what I was even telling Chastity, which I don't know if their campus uses Montessori Compass. We do, for sure. So if you wait till the end of the 9 weeks to go in there and document all of the lessons that you've given, it's not fun. It is very, very stressful, and it takes you a long time. So my thought process going into this year is, I feel like daily, that's not realistic for me. I know I'm not going to get in there and do that every single day. But maybe weekly, like, okay, what did I teach this week? And on there, and I can show you once we are actually back at Luna, because there's a way to show if you've presented the lesson and then if they're developing or if they've mastered it. Yeah. Now, the one thing that frustrates me about Montessori Compass is, so once you go to print your report, it'll be more detailed underneath the lesson. But for instance, like, how there's so many different variations of stamp game, well, it doesn't always separate it by like the presentation. So I might mark that it's developing, but then when I look at the description underneath the lesson, I'm like, well, they have mastered that, so then I'll go back and I'll fix it. So just always read over it before you send it out to parents. And another thing too, there will be a portion in there where you can write notes, and that's academic notes as well as behavior. And I would just say, if you are having any issues academically or behaviorally, you have to record it. Yeah. And then just have conversations with Wilkerson too, because like I told you, she has very high expectations, and she does not put up with behavior, like no distractions. And if there's a problem that's ongoing, then she will do a probation meeting, and then there's 3 strikes, and then you're out of the program. I haven't really heard of that happening that often, but I know it has before, because Jennifer told me she had a boy in her class and the behavior did not improve, and then unfortunately he was no longer able to stay in our program. So but we have a really, really good team. I really am looking forward to this year. I think it's going to go really well. Unfortunately, we don't all get to plan together. Y'all will have your planning period, we'll have ours, but on Friday we all meet for PLC. So that's really nice, and that's when we really dive into data and things like that. What else? Any questions so far? Or any thoughts? I feel like I'm throwing so much
this
at
is
you.
very, like, this is so helpful because these are all the questions that I've been, like, kind of bumping around in my head all summer. Let's see. This is, like, kind of a random question. It's kind of subjective, but how much printing do y'all do? Like, how much, like, I just remember, I mean, my experience is, like, always on, I was always going on Thursday, and I would print this big old block of papers for the next week and then bring it.
Yeah.
Is, like, that's, what is, like, the degree of what, or how much are they doing on kind of papers or printed worksheets?
Did y'all have a certain amount of prints that you could have?
No.
We don't either, but to be honest, in our setting, you really don't have to print a whole lot.
That's fabulous. Oh,
I have them do a lot, like in their notebook or on paper to put, because I want it to go in their binder to then go in their portfolio so their parent sees it. But we also have Seesaw, and that's a lot of, like, how you're going to see your kids' work. They'll submit it, and I'll even have them read things to me or explain things, and then I'll go back and listen to it, and if I need to pull them, I do. But really and truly, we don't have to print a whole lot. You will do handwriting, so you'll have some sort of paper for that, and it depends who's planning it. And then your passages. So we do a passage a week and just, like, really dive deep into it and really scaffold it, because, like I was telling you, in first grade, our expectation is to restate an answer and then, like, really honing in on making sure you capitalize the beginning of your sentence and you punctuate. And then going a little more in depth in second grade, and then doing that full ECR in third. But really and truly, like, even my little ones, especially my high ones, when I'm giving those lessons to third grade, they listen. And I was just so amazed. One of my kids, I don't even know what the passage was, but his response was, in paragraph 4, comma, and then he answered it. I'm not joking. This little first grader. I mean, he's very intelligent, this one. Like, but I'm like, you were listening, weren't you? He's like, yeah, I was. Which I had examples too in my classroom, but I was just really amazed at that, especially coming from, like, being an inclusion teacher, you know, there just was a big difference. But, this is another thing I was going to tell you about printing. Don't do what I did last year, because I would make all my own copies, and it's hard to get on the copier. And they don't really like you to use the copier that's behind Lydia and Shelly's desk, because that's theirs, and the principals also send their stuff to that printer. So I just try to stay away from that. But if you need color, you can use it. You can use it if you need color. But there's, like, a little basket, and I'll show it to you when we're at Luna in the workroom. And you have this paper that you fill out, and Megan will print it for you, and then she'll put it in your box. Because that's all. I'm not saying that to discredit Megan. No, she's fabulous, but she makes sure all of our copies get done. The laminator we're not allowed to use. That is off limits.
Probably a good idea.
And I think the reason that is because there was a teacher that kept messing up the laminate, and they were having to throw away, like, rolls of it, and it was getting really expensive.
Just be, like, sheets of plastic, like, flying.
So
but we can have our own personal laminators and
no, Taylor does that, and honestly, some of the teachers prefer that for certain things because it's so thick. It's amazing, especially for task cards and things like that. But don't feel like you have to. But remember, I was telling you about that PTA grant. I mean, you could always sign up for that, and if you wanted to have, you know, more stuff for your laminator, like, they're at Luna, they're so good at taking care of us. Like, they really
I can
are.
really feel that, like, already.
And it's so nice. Just because in the past, you know, I didn't really have that, so it's really, really nice. And your parents too are so good about like contributing to your classroom. They really want to. So, you know, you can always. Now, I will say, garlands, like, they're sticklers. Even if you share with your parents something you need and they provide something for your classroom, they say that that's Garland ISD's property. So if you were ever to leave the district, they would want you to leave.
Absolutely.
All that
Absolutely.
stuff.
Don't go
which I don't think you're going anywhere.
No.
You
But
better not
yes,
be.
of course.
Like, don't go, Mary. But I don't know. I know that's a lot of information.
No, this is all so helpful, so I really appreciate it.
Thrown at you, but I don't know. Those were a lot of the things. That was a lot of the things that I wish that I had known prior to, because once we get in there and we get going, it goes so fast. But
it's happening.
Other than all that, I mean, what is your just genuine
General
goodness gracious. Yeah. Well, I guess just feeling, because you had a lot of training this summer. Yeah. And I also remember how I felt last summer, and it's a lot. And like I told you, next week, if you need to take that time, take the time. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so a couple of questions I'm just trying to kind of think through. As far as so we don't, obviously there's no, I just want to put it like really clarify, no extrinsic rewards. We don't do stickers and stickers.
No, but
amazing.
Okay, yeah. This is one thing that I learned at my previous campus, and I liked it, and I used it, is more kind of like a group incentive.
Yeah.
And so let's say we're in the hallway and you compliment my class. I spell the word compliment with magnetic letters, and once we receive our 10th compliment as a class, then we have a compliment party. No other teacher does that but me, but the kids get really, really excited for it, and they behave really well at specials. But it also is like a group effort. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But the things that we did, I mean, I always made sure it was still educational, but like we made like a little snack one time, and that was a lot of fun. I'm trying to think of what else we did. I think we did something with pumpkins because it was in the fall, but I don't know. That's not something you necessarily have to do with your kiddos, but if you see, because I don't know, they like specials really good. I'm not going to say that they don't.
Yeah, whenever they're in a
sometimes they prefer one specials class over another. And the 4 specials are, and they will send us a rotation. So they go to, I was going to say math. They go to gym twice a week. And like I told you, that's Coach Ramos and Coach Nick. Coach Nick just had a baby too. She's so cute.
Oh my goodness.
Cute. We had so many babies last year. Clarissa, she was out at the end of the year because she had a baby too. But yeah. You'll go to PE 2 times a week. Then you'll have art, library, and music. So, and the music teacher, she had a baby too. I'm like, what's up with all these special teachers? And the art teacher got married. I got married.
Yeah,
so that's another thing. And like I was telling you, sometimes you'll probably hear Miss Boggs, but then I'm really going for Mrs. Hunt.
Mrs. Hunt.
So I'm hoping that I can get that changed before the school starts. I'm just waiting on that Social Security card.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's that. Is there anything?
How much flexibility is there for kind of like sort of small, like us? So for example, like my version of the compliment party would be like when I was in Montessori in my lower L class, we did something called Fuzzy Friday, which was similar. And Fuzzy Friday this is a tip for any teachers only that want to do this. It's a great, very Montessori. Basically, it would just be the equivalent of a reward for X thing. It could be like great behavior, great during reading, whatever. But it's essentially like a slumber, like they get to bring a pillow or a blanket, or you can kind of decide how much they get to bring, but like a pillow or a blanket, and a flashlight if they want, and then it's like a reading party. So they just like get their little stuffed animal, they make their little, and they go so insane. And then like the expectation is silent reading, so it's a party that they get really excited for, but then they're like, great.
No, that's totally something you could do. And also like at the end of the year, we have like those fun days, you know, and kind of close to Christmas break, we have fun days like that too. But yeah, that's totally something that you could do. I would definitely, the only thing that I would say is within your pod, like pretty much everybody does the same thing, which I kind of did, like I told you, nobody else did what I did, but I always was open about what I did, because I mean, I don't know. I just always want to be transparent and upfront, and if they want to do it too, then they can. So yeah, I would just, that sounds like a lot of fun. And they bring a lot of cool things to Luna too. Have you seen that, what is it called? I think it's like something George, the traveling dinosaur museum.
Yes, where they,
we brought that to our campus.
That work there where they have like
It was so much fun.
That's
they
cool.
really tried to bring things to Luna so that,
That's great.
And we went on one field trip last year, but we want to try to go on 2. Ooh. The difficult part about our field trips is, like, from where our campus is, there's not a whole lot of places to go, because we wanted to go to the Dallas World Aquarium too, like Rachel was talking about, but it's way too far.
Yeah.
Because by the time you get all the way there,
Yeah,
and then
like
you can,
45
think
minutes.
of traffic back.
Yeah.
It's like, that's a lot of time in the bus. We went to the Heard Museum. Have you heard of the Heard Museum? It was very hot. I would say
What
we're
is
gonna. It's kind of just like an outdoor. Like they have a lot of trails
Oh,
and
that's fun.
some
Yeah.
animals that they're rehabilitating. But they did like a presentation. Like got out like the giant turtle shell to show
Yeah.
that, and she also had some snakes that she brought out, and there was like a blue tongue lizard that she brought out too, which was really interesting and talked about. But our goal this year, because that is one thing between the two pods, us 8 lower L teachers, we plan all of that together. Poor Michelle Poole, she did so. It's like she carried the weight on this last field trip. So I told her, I was like, I will help more. And another thing, have you taken your kids on field trips before? You have?
Yes.
So you're familiar with like the money. Did your kids have to pay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they'll have to pay too.
So fun.
And just know, you don't have to worry about chaperones because
They will show up.
Yes. Yeah. So just be aware of that. We did pretty much like 4 chaperones per
class.
class, which was really nice because then they take them and we kind of just walked around and monitored. So it was a lot of fun. Just because this is off the top of my head, if you're ever going to be absent, I mean, of course, you go through Welker Center or whatever, but a lot of times the subs that we use, that kind of just cycle throughout the school, Mrs. Paul, she's phenomenal. She's a former Montessori teacher. I love her so much. Mrs. Warren, oh my gosh, she's not a former Montessori teacher, but she was a teacher. She is a hoot, let me tell you. She took over Clarissa's maternity leave. She's just, I don't even know how to describe her personality, but you will meet her. Annabelle Dixon, she also is a sub, but she's quite a bit older, and I don't think it's around as well anymore. But I know that she can like take half days and stuff like that. But her health's not always that great, so I don't know. But those are the 3 subs that a lot of us use. Oh, and Mrs. Ali. She's another substitute that is so sweet. So sweet. Her daughter is in Mrs. Poole's class. So anyways, sorry, just
No, don't,
just
that's
thinking
great.
of
That's
just
all
thinking
very
of things
helpful.
to share with you that might be helpful. What are your thoughts like just going into to this school year? What do you feel like you need help with, or what are you concerned about?
Let's see. I definitely, because I was Montessori myself, which is helpful because I think I have some frame of reference, and also, that was 15 years ago, so I'm like, oh, what was I doing when I was 6 years old? I think definitely things that I will need that are not like can be necessarily addressed like right this second, but things that I feel like I'm gonna need
Like
support
going
with.
forward, yeah.
And things that really helped me last year in my first ever year teaching were just having some like walking through like an average school day, especially the first like week and a half, like either being able to kind of like look at somebody else's plans or see what their flow is. That's really helpful. I think if there's a particular sort of, even like not an official checklist, but like a kind of checklist that y'all are using for routines that you need to make sure to teach.
Yeah.
I think that's really helpful because every campus, there's like different things at every campus that you don't think of until all of a sudden you're like, oh, I wish I knew that. That's definitely, let's see. And then I'm excited to learn more about like the lesson planning process as far as putting it in and seeing former year's plans. I think that will be great.
Yeah.
And let's see. Just parent communication. Again, that's more of a discussion, but just kind of like how frequently, what the expectations are for like times, when we're available, how we're about, all of that. Emailing versus like Seesaw and what that looks like. So
definitely Seesaw, use that to communicate. And I think it's personal preference. I communicate with my parents quite a bit.
Yeah.
And you will also find out like PTA will send us a lot of things. So, and they make cute little flyers, just download it and upload it. I will tell you, because a lot of our parents, they have multiple kids that go to our school. If you're not uploading that stuff, they will complain, because I was like, why is this teacher doing it, not this one? Poor Taylor, Mrs. Wilkerson was like, you need to make sure that you're uploading those flyers, because it just got so busy at the beginning of the year. Bless her heart, she wasn't doing it intentionally or anything like that, but just make sure if they send you something that you just upload it on Seesaw. But I don't know, like I said, I communicated pretty frequently, especially with my struggling learners. And it wasn't always negative. Like, for instance, anytime James moved up a reading level, I would send a message to his mom. I normally took a picture of him with his book, and I would say, guess who moved up today? Like, jumping for joy because James is reading on a J. I would do stuff like that. But just keeping them in the know of things. And they're really good, too, about doing call-outs. Sanders would always do that, and you'll get those, too. So don't be scared if you get a call from Garland, because sometimes it's her, and it's just a call-out to all of our parents and us too.
Oh, I see.
You know what I mean?
Yes,
so you just answer it, and it's like a voicemail almost.
This is Garland. Yeah.
So don't be scared, because there was so many times where I'm like, why are they calling me at 6 o'clock? And then I answer it, and it's Dr. Sanders going, hello, Luna families. And she used to always call us the Lunaverse. It was so cute.
That's really
but we live in the Lunaverse. But it's really and truly up to you how frequently you want to communicate to parents. I would highly suggest, especially with those MAP scores at the beginning of the year, because those will go home. You don't have to print those. If a parent wants a detailed report, you can go onto it's not a web page, it's like a little icon on our computer, but you can go through there and send them a really detailed report. To me, it's very confusing for parents, because it's a lot of the lingo that like you and I use, and antiques and everything. But you definitely don't want to wait till fall conference to lay something on them, because that's their baby.
They deserve to.
So
absolutely, and then just continue.
I just try to keep the peace. Just cross my T's and dot my I's. But you'll do fall conferences and spring conferences, and she does like for those to be in person. And we use, what is it called? Sign Up Genius. We use that.
That's what I did last year.
And really and truly, like, there's a window they open it up, and it's a pretty big window. Some teachers like to do it all during their conference period. Some like to do it all after school. I like to do it after school. I did not like to do it during the day. Just because I use that for my planning. But then there is one night where it's a late night, and a lot of parents sign up for that just because they're working. But definitely keep them in the loop.
That's they really make sure that they understand that we are all working together as a team for your child.
And that's what I would always tell them, because I did, unfortunately, which I think it was because she was an only child, and I know that she had went to this really pristine Montessori school when she was little, and unfortunately I don't think she had a very good kinder and first grade teacher, so there ended up being some gaps, but it was so difficult for that parent to hear that. But I just told them, I looked at them and I said, I'm on her team. Like, we're both, on the same team. Like, I'm not against her. Like, I'm here to support, like, whatever I can do. And normally that's when you see, they relax and whatnot. But, you've taught, so I think you totally know what I'm talking about. Parents just, it can be hard when they hear those challenging, when you have those challenging conversations. But as long as you keep them in the loop, it's a lot easier going forward. And to keep Wilkerson in the loop too.
Yes.
Definitely. Yeah, because no surprises there.
Yes.
But other than that, like I said, we have a really positive school culture, and everybody, I feel like, works to the common goal. Our mission statement, like nurturing the whole child in the lifelong pursuit of learning. And I don't know, just I've been at several different campuses, and this one's different in a good way. You'll really be happy, I think.
That makes me really happy to hear. That's definitely like, I'm getting that kind of gut feeling already. And so then the more that I learn, I'm like, I just get more and more excited.
I'm just so glad that you are at Luna. I was telling Tanner that yesterday, because he was like, well, how are the trainings going? And I was like, I said, one of the girls that's at training, she's going to be at Luna. Her and I have gotten really close. He was like, are you making a friend? I was like, oh my gosh.
Not me and Glenn having the same thing happened with us.
I was
He's
like, no,
"Are you
I
gonna
think her and I are really going to be close. Like, we're really going to get along. He's like, I'm so glad. He's like, but don't replace me. I'm like, oh my gosh, Tanner.
No,
I'm like,
Glenn's
I
the same
get
way.
one friend. You don't have, like, stop.
Glenn's like, you're making friends. That's wonderful. You need to get their numbers and go to coffee. And I'm like,
I know. Well, because we have a pool at our house when we just moved, but Tanner was like, we need to all, you know, well, not meet up. Y'all come over to our house and we can have a pool party one weekend.
Yeah,
but
that would be so fun. Yeah.
it will be fun. But,
yeah.
And even, like, if you have questions, I know Upper L, like, Wanakee, I would say she's the lead in Upper L, but they're really good. Like, especially, for instance, if you have a kid that's really advanced in math, I know Rachel at one point, it went to them, and let's say, like, they get to test tubes. I think a lot of times they like to present that lesson because they do it a very specific way in Upper L, but same thing for primary. I've gone to them a couple of times, like, tell me more about this child, you know, what do I need to know? Everybody's really good. And in the office too, like I said, Lydia, which I always tell Lydia she's my best friend. And she's so tiny, but she's so sweet. Lydia, Shelly, and Megan, I mean, they're fabulous. And we have phones in our room. Do you know that? So if you ever need something, you can call me too. Like, if you're like, hey, Julian,
what's going
I mean,
on?
I don't know what kind of question you would have, but every once in a while we would call each other to just have a really quick, like, you know, hey, this is what we're going to do, or do you have this, you know, or sometimes the administrators, or calling Shelly like, hey, I'm going to send a kid down to go get some note cards. Is that okay? Yeah, I'll have them ready. So it's really a good place to be.
Awesome. Yeah.
I really like Luna. I prayed very hard when I was moving to Dallas, you know, for God to open a door. Because, I mean, you knew my experience prior
really
to this. And, you know, once you have, like, how do I say this? Like, have your room set up how you want to, you know, and like you said, those routines are in place. I mean, it just clicks. And it's so rewarding to look out and see all these little, well, not all of them are tiny, but, you know, to see all these kids with their rugs and everybody's working on something different. Like, this one might be, you know, doing something with geometry and working with the materials, but then this one is working with language. And another thing, too, that you'll notice is what they gravitate to, like, and what they're really interested in. I have this one little girl, and I don't know what it is about language. Like, she can't get enough of it. And for a first grader, she's pretty advanced in language. But then I have these two little boys that were first grade, and they're little mathematicians, and they would literally come to me and be like, make a really big problem word, or show me what they did. And I just sat back in amazement all the time. So I think it's going to be really exciting. And I think Wilkerson said, too, that she was going to try to find times for us all, like the 8 of us, to be together more, because I know it's difficult with the schedule and whatnot, but that is one thing that we all said we wish we had more of, was time together between the eight of us, And I don't know any update on the other teacher next year, goodness gracious, next week when I'm up there, I'm going to ask her about that. But one thing I will say about Wilkerson, and I do appreciate this about her, she's like, I want to make sure whoever I put in that position is serious about it and is going to stay and is passionate about what we do. So in time, somebody will come, you know.
I'm trying to recruit all because I've been converting everybody to the like all my teacher friends. I'm like, have you ever heard of have you ever considered being a Montessori teacher? You know,
a Montessorian.
A Montessorian. But so I was trying to. We'll have to find. I don't know, but
Wow, if you ever need anything, I'm just down the hall.
Yes.
So come and knock, because our doors are locked. Or call me on our phone. But like I said, it's going to be a great school year, and I'm really excited for you to be at Luna.
Me too.
All right, Mary.